in the people look a little. Get ready to get the helicopter might come in handy, you know?
Got rid of the boat.
Yeah, you get rid of them, he told us
Oh,
last
man,
meeting, you
I
got
was
rid of the boat.
It's my last year, I was gonna retire, I was gonna go down and sue you.
Oh, man.
My good friend James, I was gonna see if I can go for a boat ride.
Yeah, it's sort of like Teamster's last seen on Charlotte's boat. Right? Sounds like a movie plot. Good morning, Tony, how are you? Let me know when you're ready. I'll go on here.
Ready, Dominic?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. We're on the recording. It's January the 25th, 2018. This is a collective bargaining session between the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners representatives and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 79 representatives. I'm Jim Sharp.
John Furr for the county.
Barbara Hitzman for the county?
Representing the union is myself, John Schultes, a business agent, and
Doug Hack, volunteer for Local 79. Jim Boucher, Public Transportation.
Raymond Duffy, Public Works.
Ed Cizik, Utilities.
Glenn Washington, Utilities.
Scott Wilkie, Fleet Maintenance.
Pam White, Library.
Connie Culberson, Emergency Services.
I guess, Steve Zimmer, the public.
Franny Grant, Citizen.
All right, so, how shall we proceed?
Well, we hear our proposal. We took a caucus. My notes reflect, we came back, we clarified what our position was on one particular article. So you have our proposal. You said you wanted to schedule another bargaining session.
Well, I have a document that will serve as both a proposal chart, which we've been using in the past, and it'll also serve as a counter proposal. It's like 2 pages, front and back. So in this document, it reflects the items that we understand to be tentatively agreed to, giving the dates, and we've seen this chart before. But what I've done is gone through the open articles and put our position, in the memo section, as well as our proposal dated today, 1/25/18. So as you can see, Article 2, bargaining unit work, we're proposing to leave at the status quo. I don't need to read every single one of them, but I will call off the article number as well as the title of the article, because all of them, until I say otherwise, we're proposing to leave as the status quo.
All right, well, as you get down the list, give me a minute to sort through each of the articles and take a look and see what the issue remains. So Article 2, you're rejecting our new paragraph, subparagraph D, okay? Next one you show is 4.
All right, our proposal is to leave it as status quo.
Rejecting the clause as amended from time to time.
That's how we want to characterize it, yeah. Our proposal is to leave it as is.
All right, keep going.
And and on that subject, we're not interested in having a career service manual change from time to time, which means that Ms. Hitzman, no offense, can go in and reword anything on any given day, anytime she wants. It's just not something we're interested in agreeing to. It's,
Well, we're in the middle of a
Sorry?
rewrite, we're in the middle of a rewrite right now, so that
Well, we-
resource manual hasn't been updated since, gosh, I wanna say it's probably 20 years or so, I mean, it's a long time. And so
well, the thing
we're,
is that we agreed to and bargaining what the rules are, and so we just have a, basically,
Well, not exactly,
unrestricted. I'm sorry?
not exactly, because paragraph B makes the provision what happens when the amendment kicks in. So you've already agreed that we have the right to amend it. So the reference to amend it from time to time is accurate in that regard, and then it says what happens when that occurs in B.
Okay, well, we're rejecting the proposal. We're just gonna leave the status quo.
Okay.
And again, for the purposes of China Recent Agreement, we're trying to make this simplistic. We, have spent a lot of time, negotiating for this agreement, not making much headway or progress, because of sign issue. And, so for the sake of getting the contract done, we're backing off a significant amount of our proposals, just trying to just leave things the way they are. We're certainly not interested in the proposals that the county has provided for a lot of these open articles, so.
I don't mean to, just to move kind of through it a little bit, I mean, this is exactly where we were last time. So, last time you had exactly proposed this.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. I certainly did not.
I thought
There's a
that
lot of
last time.
proposals out here that I just got done saying that we basically backed off of, in other words, pulled off the table. And our new proposal today is to leave things the way they are. So that's not the exact same proposal that we had last time.
Okay, well then maybe, I'm sorry, so let's do this. So last time, you had stated that you were okay with PTO and the wages the way we did it, as long as everything else stayed status quo, and you had indicated which one. So just tell us what has changed from last meeting to this meeting, and
Well,
what
first of
other
all-
ones are you leaving the same?
First of all, what are you referring to as the last meeting, 12/21?
Yes.
Okay, because I think you might be talking about the November proposal or bargaining session is what you might be referring to.
Okay.
Because we had a package deal
Okay,
that was
gotcha.
presented to you on that day, it was rejected. Jim came in with a document that had several little stars on it saying, well, we need at least this and at least this and at least that. And then we said, that's not agreeing to what our one-time package proposal was, so effectively you were rejecting our package proposal.
Okay,
Then a month later, sometime later in December 21st, we came into bargaining and you had a considerable amount of different proposals from the ones that Jim had two stars on. And Jim had clarified, well, let's, some of the stuff that on 12/21 that's being reproposed was actually proposed back in November, but when you came back into the room, you had a different document with stars on it. And so, and I know what I'm saying is accurate.
I have it in front of me.
All right, great. So your comment is that it's not true, or it's completely inaccurate to say that we're exactly where we were the last time. That's not true, it's not accurate.
So,
okay, well, last time, oh, go ahead, Jim, yeah.
I was gonna say, maybe this will help us jump forward on it. You're right, we came back and we gave you a document where we had some of the articles of the contract. We put asterisks on particular paragraphs that we told you were primary issues for us, all right? And so, maybe you can tell me if I just look at that document in your chart. You've rejected what we had, the first thing that we had starred, which was Article 2D. So that remains rejected, in spite of our emphasis on how important it is to us. I didn't even asterisk Article 2D. Yeah, I see why, because it's second page of it. The next one that we did was on the collateral documents as amended from time to time. You just rejected that.
No, we rejected it that day on 11/30. Then we rejected it again on
Okay.
12/21.
So it
We're
stands
rejecting it a
rejected.
third time
Okay.
on 125, so.
Well, on 12/21 though, I thought you said that whatever the county's best offer was, you were gonna take it out for a vote. That was what
Prior to
you were.
you, prior to you providing your proposals on that day.
We
That was
had
my
one, I
opening
believe we
comment.
had one change to one proposal on that day, and that was it. Everything else was the same. There was some confusion as to Article 9, which we did clarify and said, no, we went back. And it was the original one that we had given to you on 11, I can't remember
11:30.
exactly, 11:30.
You had, there were two differences. One, you wanted to take away just cause, and you wanted to take.
No, that was the confusion one. That one we went back to the 11:30 one, so that was fine. That was gonna be the same as 11:30. And I believe there was just one article that
Past
changed.
practices.
No, that was the same. We never changed that from 11:30.
But we rejected it on 11/30. So, I mean,
Okay.
you know, I
Well,
wanna
then,
so
but then
there's-
you came back on the 21st and said you were gonna take it for a vote.
So there's really
That's where-
nothing
Nothing's
for us to do
changed.
but to walk out of there and look at this, right? 'Cause
It's up to
You
you
don't really
what you
wanna
want to do. I'm
explain.
just telling you what, you know, we, back in November, were willing to consider bringing something to the members to vote on. And based on the document from 11:30 with your asterisk on it. And then the landscape changed on 12/21, because that was no longer your proposal. You had, whether they were reproposed or not, we were going backwards from that document.
what you refer to as the landscape changing is in reality the bargaining continued. The previous meeting, you didn't say, okay, we accept that, or we have a deal. You said, we want to come back then too. So we came back. And I think Barbara did a very nice job of explaining to you at that point is, you can't expect when you walk out of the room and reject a proposal, that we're not gonna go back to work and try and come up with some additional language and look at it, which is what we did between the two meetings.
Okay.
You
Well, that's what we
persuaded
did
us to
between
go
the
back
last
to
meeting
one
and
of
this
the, on one of them, which we did, we acquiesced to that, we still don't have a deal on it.
All right, so that's
I don't know
what
what
we
you
did.
want. I don't think
Between
you know what you want.
12/21 and 125, we did the same thing. We both have a right to go back
Of
to,
course.
and so we, as a committee, don't think, we've had a meeting, a group meeting since then, we don't feel that the PTO as it is now, as it's structured now, is something that the members are going to ratify. There's a serious amount of discontent with it. We're certainly not willing to do away with just cause, it's absurd. To do away with the seniority rights that we have, to do away with the other items that you're trying to eliminate from the contract, past practices. So our proposal is, let's just get the deal done. We've been living with this language that doesn't necessarily, we're not necessarily pleased with. Apparently you're not pleased with, but you know what, it's a compromise. It's a compromise that we've had for several years. And we're willing to continue with the compromise by leaving it alone. Because you're not getting what you want, we're not getting what we want. So we're gonna compromise with leaving it alone.
All right, so to get the deal done, we have to agree with you on these issues.
Well, that's what our proposal is.
Okay.
Our proposal is to leave all of this stuff alone and to get to really the biggest issues, which is wages and salary. Our proposal is to simply have the 4% that was allocated or budgeted by the VOCC given to the employees without any sort of funky program that is steeped in favoritism. At least this is the perception of the employees. I don't work here. I'm just a representative. I'm a mouthpiece of the committee and the members. So everything else that you see on here is basically leave it alone, leave the status quo. 4% goes out, we got a deal. That's what the committee is directing me to propose, and that's what the proposal reflects today.
Okay, so should we take this as your last and final offer to reach an agreement?
I didn't say it was the last and final, I just said that's our proposal today. If you want to get a deal, then agree with it. If you don't want to get a deal, then don't agree with it. We're still bargaining.
We've already given you what, that document on 11:30 that we provided to you, is things we're not willing to compromise on in terms of our language that we proposed. So I'm not sure where we go from here, because, like I said, we're not going to agree to any contract that doesn't have, at a minimum, these asterisks that we've done in here, and you've rejected all of them, so I really don't know where that leaves us at this point.
Well, it's like this, Barbara, we have a contract that we've had for several years. You want it to change for the worse for the employees. We want it to change for the better for the employees. And neither party is getting what either party wants. So the worst thing to do not to say the worst thing, the best thing to do is just to leave it alone, kick the can.
I
Unfortunately,
disagree.
that's what,
Okay.
we're thrilled about it. We have a lot of goals to change this contract to make things better for the members. You've rejected every single one of them, and then further gone backwards. So, that's just the way bargaining works. If the two parties try and get what they want, and when that doesn't happen, we end up compromising. So our compromise is we need to leave it alone. We're not happy with it, we're not thrilled with it, we're not getting what we want. You have your ultimatums, we have our ultimatums, neither party's getting our ultimatums. So,
There's certain things we can't live with that we've been directed by our side not to walk away without, and so that's where we're at. So we believe that there are alternatives, and clearly that's, I guess, where we're at, so.
well, the difference between the respective positions is that you're trying to change things in the contract. Okay? And our perception is you're trying to change them to make them worse for the employees. Our position is that we're not getting what we want, but we're at least willing to leave it alone. So
Yeah,
that's the difference. You're
I
trying to
disagree,
gain
I
something.
disagree, because obviously we disagree. I mean, for instance, the PTO policy, I believe that's a benefit for the employees. It absolutely benefits 85% of the employees. So the rest of the county, the fire department asked for it in negotiations, they agreed to it. We have 2 fire contracts where it's agreed to, and the entire rest of the county is now on PTO effective in January. So now it would be seemingly you guys who are the only group that for whatever reason is saying, well, no, we don't want PTO. Again, most of the employees think it's a benefit, and so I would disagree with your assessment that I'm trying to make it worse for the employees, because I think that is absolutely better for the employees.
Well,
So-
that's your opinion, and listen, I don't have an opinion, I said that from day one. with
But
the-
I
with
just
the
don't like
CTO.
you characterizing it as the county wants what's worse for the employees, because in a lot of these instances, I totally disagree with that stance. And like I said, so we're making changes that we're making throughout the entire rest of the organization. And, performance-based pay would be another example. That's not harmful to the employees. It's harmful to the employees that don't perform as well as employees that do, because you're proposing a 4% where employees got 5%. A lot of employees got 5, or 4.75, or 4.5, or 4.25, and would get under the system. The worst performing employees maybe would not get 4%. So again, it is your view versus our view as far as, the differences. We don't think it's worse for the employees. It's just a different stance. It's where the county's heading with performance-based pay. It's extremely important to us. And so it remains a difference, I suppose, at the table. And again, if that's,
But it's not
we're
just
not gonna
that, it's
resolve
not
it.
just PTO with performance-based pay. You're trying to remove any sort of past practices, or past practice protection. You're trying to remove any sort of seniority rights.
What
So
did
it's
we
not
take
just
away?
the pay and just the PTO, let's be honest.
I
You're
disagree
trying
with
to
that.
take things away, and you think it's better for the employees, because that's what Barbara Hickman thinks.
No,
That's
no,
what
I'll tell you
Barbara
what,
wants.
no, it's because we have a complaint file that give you the seniority thing. You have 3 bus drivers who are getting all of the overtime,
We're not
all of
getting
the
all
bus
those.
drivers,
We've been
okay.
through this 100 times, Barbara.
Okay, well,
It's just-
again,
you're
it's not
misguided in what
fair.
you're saying, it's not
No.
accurate,
No.
and you know what, we're just tired of hearing it. We're tired of hearing the same old, same old.
That's fair.
We'll take a break.
Take a break
We'll
and,
come back.
But
We'll
before we
give you
take
our
a
last
break,
and final.
Can I add something to the performance-based pay? In my department alone, we were judged.
Just remind me what department that is.
Fleet maintenance.
Thank you.
We were judged upon our duties and responses and so forth. Our manager, so forth, graded us on these things. And sent them off to his managers, and his managers didn't like the way he scored us. So they in his party made the changes that they felt all the employees should get, instead of what the actual manager that works with you every day should get. So everybody scored lower than what they should have.
well, I disagree with your characterization. I mean, so I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is the supervisor fills out the eval, and it gives it to the manager. The manager's job at that point is to make sure there's consistency, because it is performance-based, to consistency between the entire department.
Correct.
So if he was saying, and I used the badge system as as an example, if you wear your name badge every day, is it a 3 or a 5? Does it meet the standard or does it exceed standard? Well, I think the manager looks for consistency in the entire department, because you guys are going to be rated against each other. So if one supervisor is a really easy grader and one supervisor is a really hard grader, I think that manager may be making that You know, in other words, smoothing it out, if you will, because it's not fair. So I don't think that it's accurate to say, oh, he downed all the grades, or he, you know, I mean, I don't think that's accurate, based on what I know.
I had proof on
So,
it.
okay, well, I'd like to hear that. I mean, I'd like to see that, because I'd like to know, you know, how that happened and who the
Right.
supervisor was. Because like I said, if you have an easy supervisor, and that wouldn't be fair to the rest of the
Right.
department, then it's
Understand that.
possible that he made those grades more consistent throughout the department.
Right, but wouldn't you feel that the person that works with you every day and watches what you do every day is more eligible to make the decision on
More qualified.
somebody that sits in an office and,
Well, not if the
That's
person
not-
gives everybody working for him all fives, because he's not using the same scoring, you know, ideology as someone else.
Right,
So in
but-
other words, I think that, again, I think that you can, you know, you can talk to the manager and get the input, but I think it's important to say, look, you know, in our department, if you're meeting the standards, it's a 3, not a 5. And so it's really just a matter of keeping it consistent for the department. Now, again, sometimes we weren't able to do that because the department's so large that you kind of couldn't change those, so we just broke it down further by managers. I think in Fleet, we used the whole department, which is probably the reason for the smoothing. So, again,
And the irony is that in the past, somebody on your side of the table has said really just the opposite, which is, you know, if just the supervisor does it, then, you know, then you got one person and nobody's looking at whether it's right or wrong. So, you know,
Right.
there's a balance between those two particular points.
right, but you know, my biggest thing is, I've always depended on my boss as my boss. The one that looked over everything I did, the one that I answered to throughout the days, the one that said, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can you do that for me? You know, can you stay late? Can you this? Can you that? That's the person that I felt should give me a grade on my performance instead of somebody that just looks over, you know, you barely ever see the shot. That's just my outlook for it.
And that would make complete sense if you worked in a small organization with a single owner and your boss was your boss and he was the man or woman that was signing your paycheck. But this is you know, the structure of an organization like the county is very different. There are, you know, there's reporting all the way up the chain of command and there's checks and balances looking back down.
Right.
And that's the process that has been built and is being built and is being improved. So we think in the long run, the performance system that Barbara has outlined will prove itself to you. That you'll say, that's good because I think my boss wouldn't have rated me like that and let somebody else look at it.
Does anybody
That's
else
the way it
want,
should look.
does anybody else want to comment? Go ahead, Jen.
I just,
want to comment that, I still think the review system is influenced strongly by a sense of favoritism where they want certain employees to come out high on the scale and certain employees not to. And one of the ways that I can look at that in my department and see how that happens is we have, I would call them more senior employees, not necessarily older, but people who've been there longer. And we were all trained under a different method than a lot of the newer employees. Plus, we've been there a lot longer. And so we see a lot of, we think, the newer employees who, at least 2 of whom, and a couple of them, who are not performing or make a lot more mistakes in what we do as far as with the patrons and with our cash drawers every day. And that was always something that we were monitored on. And understanding the system and how our system works and is supposed to work. And we see a system that is slanted towards the newer people who have come in and are quite eager to perform, you know, whatever projects we're given, but not necessarily performing well in the duties that will always be there and be part of running the library system. And actually, I mean, I definitely see people who are on our job level who are doing things that never really were part of the description for that level. So that's one thing that I see. The other thing is that as far as PTO, I still think that we're losing 3 to 4 days of time.
if you use all of your sick leave, yes, that's true. If you don't, then no, it's not true. So,
Barbara, where did the figure of 85% of people want PTO?
I didn't say 85% of the people want PTO, I said 85% of the people would benefit from PTO because that's how many of people in our organization don't use over 9 sick days.
Yeah, well, out of 82 drivers, 55 of them, I asked myself, are against PTO. 2 are on inactive, on medical. 5 are on defense. So it leaves us like 19 people that didn't ask. So
Same,
that's a pretty good number of people that are against the PTO time. And this is today.
same in our engineering department. We
I
had,
just, I don't know where that figure came from, but
It's from running the numbers and looking at actually who utilizes sick leave and how many days that they utilize sick leave and then doing the math. I mean, it's just
you know
math.
what, there's 82 people in this department.
And Jim,
55.
studies have shown that those numbers might not be way off, but what studies have also shown is that that's common for people to resist or reject a shift to PTO, but after it's in place, it's largely embraced, those numbers probably flip.
Absolutely.
I understand what you're
percentage-wise
saying,
after the fact.
Jim, it's just that when I go back there, they ask me questions. And I'd like to give them some kind of an answer, you know, to,
Give them Barbara's phone number, and I think she could do a better job, no disrespect intended, of explaining how it works and how it will convert and why it's a benefit than you do. Perhaps you're taking it to them with a bit of a bias of your own about it.
well, like I say, this is my last year, so it's not gonna really affect me. But it will affect these people down the road.
Then you're the wrong messenger.
no, and I'd like to say, in our department, our engineering manager had 35 of us in engineering, and he said, how do you expect me to sell this to the people in our department? So out of the 35, only 2 of them were in favor of PTO. So that's from a manager talking to all of us in one meeting, and this is when it first came up. So I just wanted to add
The
that.
best way to sell it
Okay.
to them is to explain to them that it's linked to the wage increases.
Well, your manager, the manager,
I've had
gave it
conversation
to-
with the
right,
manager and
right.
I disagree with,
Yeah.
I mean, he did not share the same,
well, you weren't there, Barbara.
okay. Well, I did
Okay,
meet
all of us were.
afterward. I did
All of
meet
us were.
with the supervisory group with that
Hmm?
management team, and I can tell you that the comments were definitely different. And
Oh, no, no, they weren't. I was there, Barbara.
Question on the wage thing, which it is rumored that some of these people over there think that they're gonna be getting $1,000 bonus because of the messenger in Washington keeps saying the big tax break is gonna have,
No, that's not fact.
yeah, so, you know, they think they're getting $1,000 bonus in February. I know that was never mentioned at any of our negotiations, but,
No, what he's referring to is that in February, the tax tables changed,
yeah.
and that it could result in an extra average of $1,000 in your paycheck. I don't think anybody should get real excited about that. because
I
what you
don't
pay in
think
taxes
so
at the
either,
end of the
but-
year, and that certainly doesn't mean a lump sum $1,000 bonus. It has never been said, it's never what, you know, and again, your taxes are, there's a lot of variables that go into filing taxes, so that can't be.
And it's never been kicked around anywhere in the
No.
BOCC that
No.
the county was thinking
absolutely
about
not. No.
this $1,000 thing. Okay, because that was another thing. I said,
We're a government, we
I
don't get
will
the,
ask.
we don't get the government tax break, the 30 to 21% or whatever that,
35 to 21.
whatever, yeah.
On the subject of seniority and past practices, you know, Jim showed me something interesting from the PCPT roster. I don't know what percentage to show it to you this morning, but of the employees that started from 2016 on, it's at least 3/4 of the list, if not more. So to think that someone who's been here for a year and a half, is going to have the ability to bid on a route over someone who's been there for 25 years because of your perception of, well, that's what the workers want. That's not what the workers who formed this union want. The workers who formed this union weren't here in 2016 or 2017 or even 2018.
We never said anything about changing.
Well,
it.
there's been some hinting that, you know, this is
No,
what
not
they're
by
gonna
us, I can
do.
tell
Okay,
you.
well then, if that's the case, then let's leave seniority alone.
We didn't touch seniority other than to say that for overtime, we want a wheel system in place. That's the only thing that
You're
we've
trying to do away
said.
with past practices and you're trying to do away
Well,
with seniority language.
again,
So
the
eliminating
seniority
both-
language- the only thing that was
I'd like
added to
speak if I
seniority-
can, but without
Okay.
interruption. So by your proposal of eliminating both of those from the contract, then whatever seniority rights there are that are protected through the past practice rights would be eliminated. So, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out what you're trying to do, Barbara, and how you want to do it, and so these members see it. And again, I'm just here to represent
Okay.
employees.
And unfortunately, like I said, there's 900 employees that you don't represent, I guess, because they don't pay dues, and those members have come to us and said they think the seniority system that's in place in PCPT is extremely unfair. And that's with respect to the overtime. They don't think it's fair that this most senior person gets selected every single day. There's an overtime shift. They want a
I
wheel.
don't know.
But that's not true.
I don't know if any
It
places
is
that do
true.
that, because
Well,
Everybody
actually-
uses a wheel. I mean, that's, the
Well,
wheel
if
is
we,
the most
and
common.
we have a wheel,
Okay, the wheel is not a wheel, Jim, it's not working that way. What happens is on every Saturday, when an overtime shift comes up, who is very first on the list?
probably the people who work Monday through Friday.
that's it.
And so the thing
Okay,
is, not
that's
everybody
true.
works Monday through Friday, Barbara, so what about overtime on Wednesday? What about overtime on Tuesday? or
But my
Thursday,
point
or
is, it's
Monday?
always the same person who's on top of the list, every single
For
time.
Saturday, maybe.
Yes, every
What about
Saturday.
Tuesday?
Every Tuesday, it's the same person on the top of the
Well,
list.
okay, but it's not the same
Barbara.
person on Saturday, so it's not the
It's
same
the
three
same-
people.
okay,
Your
so
comment
it's-
is completely
So it's the
wrong.
same 7 people or same 5 people?
You said, I thought you said the same top 3 people,
It is, then we'll have a
okay,
party.
get all of the overtime.
I'm trying to
That's what-
explain it to you, if you let me. The shaded are the drivers off, it's the same amount.
Right,
The driver that calls in on a Saturday, off, the driver that's off covers it.
I know, so Jim,
And
okay,
it goes
so
right down the
just answer
line.
this.
So
Jim,
the
are
guy
you
who
the
works
number
from
one
Monday through
driver?
Friday is not gonna have the
He does-
opportunity to work overtime Monday through Friday.
The same Saturday driver, Jim, and you know this is true, on Saturday, the person that's on top of the list for Saturday, who is that?
Jerry Gross.
Jerry Gross. Does Jerry Gross, is he the one that every single Saturday he has first bid if there's an overtime shift?
Yeah.
There you go.
what-
That's what
What
we're
about,
trying to
But
do.
I'm
who's first on
second.
overtime for Friday?
It doesn't matter, my point
Yes,
is,
it does.
Okay, but
It completely matters.
The answer
What about
is this.
Thursday? What about Wednesday? What
It's the
about Tuesday?
same
Because it's not
person.
Jerry Grasso. It's not
it's the
him.
same person on Wednesday, every single Wednesday, the same person. So there's 2 days a week that they're off, which means that there's
Why
no
do you
more.
care, Barbara? Why do you
I
care?
don't, it's the
Okay,
workers
you
that
go.
care.
Yeah,
The
right.
workers that are
All the
calling
workers who
and
started from
saying,
2016
All right.
and got hired to 2018.
you know what, I'm
And then
sorry,
you got a
listen,
manager,
listen,
you got a
listen.
director who's
We
been here for
disagree.
about the same amount of time, a
We
year.
could scream at each other all day long, we are never gonna agree on this, so let's just stop,
Because you
okay?
don't, you
Because I
wanna
know.
change things. You
I
wanna
do.
change things
I
that the
absolutely
workers
do.
organize.
Here's what we could agree on, is that within the definition of your bargaining unit, all members of the bargaining unit are created equal. There's no distinction until we get to contract language that provides favoritism to seniority. Okay, that's something that was inherited through the civil
That's
service
twisted logic.
system.
That's twisted logic.
Okay,
You're
well,
you're
listen,
trying to say, you actually are sitting there trying to say that seniority creates favoritism. What planet are you from, Jim? You've been around forever. Give me a freaking
I'm
break.
listen,
I'm
listen,
from your
we're- I
planet.
think, I
Okay,
think,
yeah, well,
I think
guess
we're
what?
done. So-
And that's why
Seniority rights-
you're arguing so
Seniority
strong
rights
for it.
extinguish favoritism because it doesn't care about who you are, what your relationship is with your supervisor. If you go to her house to have barbecues and hamburgers and you want to hang out with the yin clique, or if you're, what color your skin is, or how old you are, or what ethnicity you are, that eliminates all that. Seniority rights eliminates all that. So you really, really going to say that seniority rights creates favoritism. That's the most absurd comment I have ever heard
It
in
does,
bargaining.
for the
firms.
most
What I'm
senior, the
telling
people
you
that
is-
you bargain for. You're not
Anyone
bargaining.
else have any comments?
You've made it clear that you don't
Okay,
bargain for
you know
the
what?
people
Yeah,
without
right,
seniority.
Right, okay.
I think
We have a
there's-
proposal.
Okay, we'll take a break at 10:39.